So is it true that Justin Trudeau is going to build a wall to keep the Americans out?
Canada is a mess right now.
Those crazy people down the south of the border.
It's nice to hear America referred to as south of the border.
Well, we're the snow Mexicans.
Snow Mexicans.
I haven't heard that one.
Title of the episode: Snow Mexicans.
That's really good.
There are things we think we know about places, but history, prejudice, stereotypes, and the viral nature of 24-hour news and social media has made common knowledge about faraway places more twisted than ever.
Today, as always on MisInfoNation, we try to clear up some of the outright lies, mistakes, myths, and misnomers of an entire country by doing what we do best. By having a chat with someone who actually knows what they're talking about.
Today, we're off to the Great White North.
The Dominion.
Maple Leaf Country.
That's right. It's been a long time coming, but finally, today, we go to Canada.
Tackling this massive, gorgeous place with us are our pals Hirad Motamed and Adam Leverett. Born in Iran and almost in the UK respectively, and raised in the snowy lands of North America, Raz and Adam have an immigrant view of their adopted homeland, but they're as Canadian as maple syrup.
And after all, this is MisInfoNation, so we always like to start with the unstereotypical.
Take it away, Raz.
I was born in Iran and I moved to Canada when I was 12. And I lived for 2 years in a small town in Ontario called Windsor. And then I moved to Vancouver. So most of my life was spent in Vancouver.
So I was born in the UK, actually, and our family emigrated just before I was born.
So wait a second, you brought immigrants into this thing? What is this?
I know. I mean, this is the first I'm hearing of it.
And when you left, did you have an idea in your head of where you were going?
I feel like in Iran, at least, like I think it's still the case, but at that time, definitely, like people really look to the West as this like elevated thing, and they really want to leave. So I was I remember as like a 12-year-old, I was excited. I was like, oh, we're basically making it at this point by going to Canada.
Since 1975, Canada has admitted more than 14 million permanent residents.
And in a country of just 40 million people, and if my maths doesn't fail me, that's around 35% of the population. Have you guys heard a lot about influx of US citizens applying for Canadian visas?
Yeah, is that a thing at all?
They'd like to talk about it, but I don't think anyone ever does it.
They never actually do it.
No,
it's just like an escape plan,
yeah,
kind of.
So I think a lot of them that wanted to do it have already done it, but I don't think there's been a particular influx.
You have to like exercise your nationality.
Yeah.
Some sort of ghost in the house.
I think there's usually an uptick of like Google searches right after the election, like, what's it like to live in Canada? Or how can I get out of here?
Is Canada nice?
Yeah, and then it kind of settles down again. So,
well, Canada is nice.
Its people are famously polite. Its landscapes are jaw-droppingly beautiful, and its cities are amongst the most diverse in the world.
And with universal healthcare, strong public education, and a welcoming attitude towards immigration, it offers a very high quality of life.
But it's not without its flaws. Housing in major cities is expensive. Winters can be brutal, and the country continues to grapple with a colonial legacy and indigenous rights.
So, with all that in mind, what do Raz and Adam think we're going to ask them about today?
The cold, dealing with the cold.
Being cold, how to stay warm.
Yeah. Maybe connection to Britain as our mother.
I don't know, all the symbols as well, like the beaver and hockey and the maple leaf and maple syrup, and that's all I got right now. But
it's pretty good.
Pretty good. So, Neil, a little look at Canada's past?
Stereotypical historical strings?
Actually, no.
Juxtaposing hip-hop?
Now you're talking. Canada's history begins long before European contact, with Indigenous peoples living across the land for thousands of years. Rich cultures like the Haudenosaunee or the Anishinaabe, Inuit, and many others.
In 1535, Jacques Cartier claimed the territory for France, calling it Canada, based on a St. Lawrence Iroquoian word for village. France established colonies in the 1600s, but after several wars, Britain took control in 1763. And in 1867, Canada became a self-governing dominion with 4 provinces, gradually expanding westward and northward.
Through the 20th century, Canada forged its own national identity, fighting in 2 world wars, adopting a new flag in 1965, and repatriating its constitution in 1982. Immigration fueled its growth, especially post-World War II, while ongoing reconciliation efforts began addressing the country's treatment of Indigenous peoples, including the legacy of residential schools.
Today, Canada is a parliamentary democracy with a constitutional monarchy, officially bilingual and proudly multicultural. From forested coasts to cosmopolitan cities and the harshest of norths, Canada's story continues to evolve.
So, Neil.
What's the most Canadian part of Canada?
Ooh.
I almost want to say the East Coast. And I have never been, but I've met people from there, like Newfoundland. Like I feel like a lot of the Canadian stereotypes come from there for some reason.
Okay.
I think they have a pretty distinct culture.
Right. It's like hardy, cold lumberjack.
Yeah, and they're very nice people.
Fishermen.
Yeah, I feel like a lot of and then they have a very distinct accent. For me, even it's very noticeable. And I know that my Canadian accent is very noticeable for some other English speakers. So like sometimes I've been in Australia where I'd be talking in a group and the group will just spontaneously burst into laughter because I said a boot. And I just don't hear it.
Do you guys turn it on?
I don't think I turn it on, but I have friends here in Spain that say when I've been home for about a month, I sound a little more like, hey, how's it going, I get this sort of rural twang.
Canadian accents have taken some hits over the years. I mean, I'm not pointing any fingers. Trey Parker and Matt Stone.
Yep. But we wanted to know about how Canadian patriotism stacks up against the USA's.
So I had a friend in high school who we went with him to get a tattoo. I wasn't aware of what he was going to get tattooed, but he tattooed on his leg a Canadian maple leaf with flames going up. It was massive. Massive, and I'm sure deeply embarrassing now.
Was he Canadian? He was Canadian?
He was Canadian.
Okay.
He introduced me
on a whim.
But it was the first time I was like, oh, wow, he really feels a maple leaf. It's not a place where you think like, wow, these people are like,
proud.
Yeah, it's true. I think we don't wear our patriotism on our sleeves like the Americans do. I think it's a little more quiet and a little more modest.
A little more British. A little more British.
I feel like when I was traveling, it's always like this was like I don't know if it was a joke or a real thing a few years ago. This like back in the early 2000s. So that tells you how long ago I moved to Canada. Where they would say like Americans had a bad reputation abroad. So when they wanted to like be more likable, they would wear the maple leaf and pretend they're Canadian because Canadians had a better reputation. So definitely when I travel, there's this thing. I was like, oh, you see someone with a maple leaf, you feel like, oh, there's a Canadian. There's a bit of an affinity there. The Canadian patriotism is a bit weird. I feel like it's 90% of it is just defining yourself as not American.
Yeah,
that's exactly. Bingo.
No. Just listen.
So there you have it. Canadian patriotism is defining yourself as not being American.
I mean, is there that much of a difference between our brothers and sisters from the US and our brothers and sisters from Canada?
I remember in my Man in Society class way back in high school, the teacher was we were looking at sort of how Americans and Canadians look at things like nature. For example, paintings. So you have, paintings from the 1800s from Americans, and it's about dominating the landscape, men on horseback, and the landscape is small. And you look at paintings of Canadians, like the famous Group of Seven, where the landscape is sort of imposing on people, and the people are small, and it's more of a struggle. It's different. It's sort of not a domineering psychology. I don't know. At least I thought that was fascinating.
That is interesting.
It literally paints a picture.
Yeah,
because I have those American, taking over the West kind of paintings in my mind, and then I can picture this kind of snow-blown landscape with tiny,
with a little
tiny
cabin.
people.
Yeah, exactly.
Now I want to see a Canadian Western now. So, Canada has produced an insane number of global superstars.
We're talking about Drake, Celine Dion, Justin Bieber, Joni Mitchell, The Weeknd.
And Ryan Reynolds, Rachel McAdams, Keanu Reeves, Elliot Page, Sandra Oh, Mike Myers, Catherine O'Hara, Dan Aykroyd.
Margaret Atwood, Alice Munro.
And one of my heroes, Neil Young.
Is Neil Young Canadian?
Neil Young's Canadian.
Yes, this is going to be one part of this episode, I'm guessing.
This is
where I find out who is Canadian.
The amount of incredible exports. I don't know what the population of Canada is. You guys know?
Now it's about 40 million.
40. Wow. It's a really unfair high level of people are Canadian.
Quality.
Yeah.
Captain Kirk.
It's nuts. Captain Kirk.
But don't you find that with Australia
is
as well?
Shatner Canadian?
Yeah, he's Canadian. Yeah.
Holy shit, I didn't know that.
Oh my.
God.
Michael J. Fox.
Michael J. Fox, yeah.
Justin Bieber.
Oh, right.
Justin
the Biebs.
Bieber, of course, Celine Dion.
But I mean, it's like John Candy, Dan Aykroyd, Eugene Levy.
Yeah. Martin Short.
Martin Short
as well. Yeah, the whole Second City Television, or SCTV.
Lorne Michaels.
It is true that there are a crazy number of amazingly funny Canadians. So, as we do, what is Canadian humor? Are you funny?
We'll start the show soon. What?
Is it wordplay? Is it trying to kind of playfully make fun of somebody else? Is it satire?
Like when I first arrived, I was just like, I think me and my whole family kind of caught up to Western humor through Seinfeld. Like we fell in love with it. We were like watching it over and over, and that was kind of like, and then that gives you a bit of an in with, because then you have some shared culture with everyone else, right? But anything that's like distinctly Canadian, no. And some of these shows, I think I kind of just missed it and I wasn't paying attention.
For me, it was incredibly formative because my brother was living in Seattle and he had probably like a cassette of Kids in the Hall or something like that. And I had never encountered anything like it.
It makes me think now that you've mentioned the Kids in the Hall, which was huge for me as well in the sort of 92, 93. And then Second City Television, or SCTV.
Yeah.
It makes me think that the humor is more subtle and less maybe cutting or meaner.
Yeah.
Whereas maybe, I think Canadian culture could be, a little bit softer or quirkier or, not exactly shooting it at someone else.
Do you think Neil, do you feel like it's closer to the UK?
I think so, yeah. Not that UK
Everybody's
humor is
nodding in
not
this room
mean,
right now.
because it can be really mean. But back in the 80s, it was all very kind of playful. And a little bit accidentally racist, but that's about the worst you can say about it. But of course, a Canadian could never and would never be racist. They're all just too polite, right?
At least that's the stereotype. In fact, that is number 1 on our list.
Welcome to the show. When Googling Canada and Canadian stereotypes is you guys can't stop apologizing even if you don't have to.
Politeness.
Yeah, totally true. I think I've noticed it a lot when I go back now that, you step on someone's foot and they say sorry. I mean, that's sort of an exaggeration, but the sorries, now I can really see that it's a bit over the top. I'm like, yeah, you don't have to be sorry that you're, I don't know, doing something very small and insignificant, but.
That's another like kind of link to England as well. I think the British do the very similar thing.
Actually, now that
Sorry.
in this conversation makes me feel like maybe that goes back to the painting. It's like it's because the culture is that people are small. Like you have to be small. I think that's maybe where what it's connected with, right? It's like, yeah, we're just gonna apologize for things and like stay in our lane and be very polite.
Did you, when you were a teenager, did you have to kind of adapt to that? Because I'm guessing Iran is not like that.
No, that part actually was not something that really popped in my head. I don't really have memories of that being like a shocking thing. When Iran, we are a little bit like that because we have this whole. I think you covered it in your Iran episode.
Check out the Iran episode.
Yeah.
We have this whole like social etiquette system of like you having to put yourself down.
Right.
So it's not exactly the same in Canada, but I can see where it comes from. I can see the connection there.
It's maybe a little less theatrical.
Exactly. Yeah. It's not like, oh, I'm going to cut my arm off for you. I'm not the dirt under your feet in Canada. It's
I also notice personal space. Again, maybe it's connected to the landscape or having so much space, because
You go out of your way to
you go out of your way to sort of respect
Socially
someone
distance.
else's space. It's
we
not
were
exactly
social distancing way before this.
yeah, exactly. It's part of that's why we dealt so well with COVID, right? Yeah.
So then question number 1. Yes, apologizing is a national institution.
So then clearly we have to go from one national institution to another.
What's with Tim Hortons?
I think that's the biggest stain on Canada's reputation. The fact that this cafe is like something that this country is like recognized by worldwide, and this is probably the worst coffee I've ever had in my life. It's just terrible.
I would agree.
But you know what's funny? Every time I go back, I go into this Tim Hortons habit for those 2 weeks that I'm there. It's weird. It's almost like, cultural touchstones that just accidentally happen.
What's the best thing to get there?
The double was like, you go there, you got a coffee with 2 shots of cream and 2 shots of sugar, which is the only way that coffee can go down. As soon as you get an appreciation for like good coffee, then
you can never touch it again.
Can't do it again.
For the most part, the coffee in North America is fucking horrendous. It's really hot. At least if you're like driving around and you're like, my ex-girlfriend used to call it Twin Peaks coffee.
Yeah, exactly. The one where they come by and offer you more.
And you're like,
yes.
I actually love that.
Diner coffee.
I want like a gallon of coffee. I don't want like a liter. I don't want to just take a shot of coffee. I want it to like last me the whole day.
Yeah, I miss the volume.
Yeah, there is something about that. With the Italians, it's like the first time you get an espresso, you're like, it's good. You can give me more.
Yeah.
So sorry, Tim Hortons. But we need one more national pastime just to round it out to 3 or 4. Let's see. You guys seem like hockey players.
I told you I moved from Iran. What gave you that second?
Hulking hockey player.
Crazy about hockey.
Yeah, that's one thing that I'm so embarrassed about is like I missed the hockey train completely.
Oh wow! And I guess
I've been to a few games and I really enjoy being in there, like being in the stadium and like watching it played and everything. But I don't follow it. I've never put on ice skates like ever in my life.
Seriously?
Yeah. I love looking at it, but like I did spend one winter in Ottawa, which is the capital. I forget the name of the river. There's a big river there and it freezes over and people are kind of skating on it all the time. And it's really...
Rideau Canal?
Rideau Canal, yeah. So that's really nice, but I've never done it myself.
See, this is why we do the show.
It's amazing. Because hockey... So you don't have like a Wayne Gretzky tattoo on your chest? Okay. No, because hockey is one of those,
Not that I would talk about on a podcast.
Yeah, it is one of those things where it's like everything's nice in Canada until something goes wrong with the hockey, and then there's like cars on fire.
But that's the thing. And hockey itself as a sport seems very anti the emotional.
Very true, yeah.
Right? It's aggressive, it's violent, it's big dudes beating the crap out of each other on ice.
Yeah, and I think there's sort of a feeling that, the traditional Canadian upbringing would be, you're ice skating in your backyard, you've made a little ice rink. And so I think a lot of kids connect childhood and community bonding and everything with the sport,
right,
even before it goes professional and everything. So it's sort of like a community thing.
How do you feel about curling?
Oh, that's a much better question.
Just rolled his eyes at.
How do I feel about
I
curling?
love curling.
I just remember stumbling upon it on a Sunday when I was trying to find cartoons or something as a kid, and just sort of being fascinated at how these people like brushing the ice.
It's
How did that come about? Does anybody?
Good question. Very good question, because it doesn't really curl. It's mostly straighting.
The idea is to brush so it spins in a certain way, right?
Okay.
To curl.
So you're
to
curling
curl
in
the
that
stone.
sense.
I see. That is true.
I think so.
Yeah.
I've
The ti-
actually
that's the
done
times I've done it.
curling more than I've done hockey. I've actually
Because
curled
you don't have to put ice
twice.
skates on.
Oh.
Is it fun?
I thought it was quite fun. Yeah.
Yeah?
We did it for like a friend's birthday thing. You just like book the place and you go with your friends, and yeah, it was quite fun. Yeah. I don't remember what we had on. I don't think it was ice skates, because that's a whole other. It's
You wear shoes with like no grip at all.
Like
Right.
a bowling shoe.
I like the posture that you have to do, like really flat on the ground, kind of like.
And I like how they yell at each other. It's so good.
Yeah, it's the intensity, the contrast of the intensity with how ridiculous the game is.
The niceness of the Canadians, this sort of wild-eyed, oh yeah, an attitude of positivity follows them around the world.
And on the list of stereotypes, straight from the bowels of that digital all-seeing eye, the internet, comes number 4.
That's right. Canadians are too nice for their own good.
This whole thing about like Canadians being nice, I think there's a very big contrast between some of the smaller towns and the big cities. I don't know how you found it in Toronto, but definitely in Vancouver, I don't think the culture is that people are nice.
Okay.
They're very polite, but they're not really nice. I feel like Americans and Canadians kind of got this backwards, because Americans are not polite at all,
But they're actually nice.
very nice. But like I've just kind of felt this when I've traveled around the U.S. It's like, God damn, that was like, people here are really nice. They just do things for you.
Yeah.
Like I've never experienced that in Canada in a big city. I think that's kind of what I found. It's the whole like the apologizing, the holding the door open. Basically, like when we're entering a building,
Right.
if you feel like somebody may consider at some point within the next week entering that building after you, you have to hold the door open until they
Just slowly turning blue.
Exactly, yeah.
Like icicles in your face.
I would say, I don't know, what was the actual phrase was, too polite.
Are you too nice for your own good?
For our own good. I wouldn't say for our own good, but I do agree with what you said about politeness versus like what's really going on. But it's a good place to start anyway,
So if you stood outside for half an hour waiting for that person to like enter the door, as soon as they go past, you're like, motherfucker. Canada
is famously cold, like eyelashes freezing together cold. The lowest temperature ever recorded was a bone-shattering negative 63 degrees centigrade. That's negative 81.4 degrees Fahrenheit in Snag, Yukon, in 1947, which is colder than Mars on a good day.
Winnipeg, home of Neil Young, is often dubbed Winterpeg for routinely dipping below minus 30 degrees. While cities like Edmonton and Regina can experience ice fog, literally fog made of frozen water droplets.
In Quebec, it once got so cold in 1993 that mailboxes spontaneously exploded due to trapped moisture freezing and expanding.
And yet, Canadians just shovel the driveway, shrug, and keep going. Usually in t-shirts, the moment it hits 0. Because in Canada, 0 degrees is practically spring. Are you guys fearless of the cold?
When I first arrived, I definitely had to learn. Yeah, I didn't know. Have you guys heard of a thing called snow pants?
Excuse me?
Snow pants?
That's what they called me in high school.
No, that was no pants.
Oh, right. Sorry, I forgot. Yeah, totally right.
I didn't know what this thing was when I arrived in Canada. I'd never seen one before.
I don't actually know. Are they like underlayer or what?
No, they're overlayer.
Okay. So you have your jeans or
You have
whatever?
your jeans, and then you have to put an extra thing on top, which is like what keeps you dry and warm. And we had to like put this thing on, go to school, and then we would like take it off and put it in our locker for the day. And that was the first time in Canada that I encountered something like that. I mean, in Iran it gets cold in the winter, but not that cold and not that much snow. Yeah,
Not snow pants cold.
Isn't it weird now? I'm thinking about it. There's a certain point where you don't wear snow pants anymore. Like when you become you're a teenager or something.
Oh.
It's more like for kids, right? And I can always remember that sound of the legs swishing.
But as you get older, then you just deal
rough
with
it. You just wear jeans and a big
Jeans
old
and a
parka or
t-shirt.
something.
No,
Or a t-shirt.
Except for newfies, because if you have, I don't know if you've met newfies like this. I was going to university with a guy from Newfoundland, and this guy all year round. I mean, we were in Vancouver, it doesn't get super cold, but there was no point in the 5 years we were doing this degree that he wasn't wearing shorts. Never. He was always with shorts.
He was basically in Florida.
Yeah.
For him, it was like,
Yeah, totally.
And I feel like that's a very Canadian thing. Like you just become immune and desensitized.
He went full snow Mexican.
Exactly.
Quebec. Canada's relationship with Quebec is a bit like a long marriage. Deeply connected, but occasionally rocky.
Quebec is proudly French-speaking and fiercely protective of its culture. So I guess the question is there a contentious relationship with French Canadians?
Well, they had a referendum in 1995 to separate, and I do remember there was a surge of people having bumper stickers saying things like "My Canada includes Quebec." I think people recognized that they didn't want a Canada without Quebec, but of course there are always the ones that say, "Well, they're always complaining. Why don't they just separate?"
And they talk funny.
And they talk funny. The weird traffic lights. Yeah. No, but in a way, I think that also makes us Canadian. That the U.S. doesn't have. Quebec makes us unique, and I also think it kind of wires in the DNA the fact that there's an other, sort of a realization that there isn't just English. There's another. And I think that really, the Prime Minister does most of his press conferences in both languages.
It's also interesting because they get away with things that would never fly in the rest of Canada. Like I think a few years ago, they're very protective of the way they do things. Everything. I don't remember what all there was this like contentious law. I don't know but it was something about like religious symbols in public buildings or something. And essentially what it came down to, it was like, it was a ban on the hijab. That's basically.
Okay.
And that would never fly anywhere else in Canada, but because it's Quebec, you have to let Quebec protect Quebec, which is like an interesting thing because, I feel like the rest of Canada doesn't have this thing of like, we have a Canadian identity that we are going to protect. It's like, no, there's nothing really tangible there. But Quebec is like, no, this is Quebec.
This is Quebec.
This is Quebec, and it's going to stay Quebec, and we're not going to let anyone kind of be there and change it.
Nobody's going to.
Yeah, that's true. There were people, of course, that said, well, I'm an Albertan or I'm a British Columbian, and we're distinct as well. Because Quebec never signed the Constitution in 1982 when we repatriated the Constitution from the UK, and they never signed it, and they wanted to have a clause that they were a distinct society. So that there was a lot of debate over that, and still to this day, sort of semi-autonomous. Yeah, sort of. A lot of similarities with Catalonia.
I was going to say it sounds identical.
Yeah.
I feel like there is a whole animosity between the Quebecois French and the French French.
Yeah.
And it's very interesting to me because for a while here in Barcelona, I had a good Quebecois friend. And in Canada, I had actually never met anyone from Quebec, but here, I met one here. And she was complaining about all the French people who are immigrating to Canada and going to Quebec and not integrating with Quebec French culture, because the French in Quebec will only hang out with other French people.
That is amazing.
And they won't learn the language.
Dirty immigrants.
Dirty immigrants. And
Stealing our jobs.
Just can't get away from it, really.
Another thing that seems to jump to the world's mind when it comes to Canada is not the danger of its temperatures, but of its wildlife. You guys have got to have had some crazy, like, revenant, like, bear encounters.
They both kind of nodded. They both nodded.
Me and my family, we have a cabin in the center of BC. It's a beautiful spot, and we have like security cameras set up there. The way the garbage system works is you have to take your trash to like a landfill kind of thing. There's no service there.
Right.
It's super rural. And I was leaving on a day that the landfill was closed, and we usually have like someone who's like a cleaner. They come and like, because it's usually an Airbnb, they come and like they clean. So I was like, I can like leave the garbage till like in like 3 days. The cleaner is gonna come. So I left the garbage inside the house, and then like the next day or the day after, I was back in Vancouver, and it was like the thing from the security camera, the motion detector was going off. That then there was a bear that came right up to our porch. There was a bear and 2 cubs, and came up to our porch, and they were like sniffing around, and then you could see the bear like stand up. It was like trying to like push the door, and it was like basically the full height of the front door. So I was still clenching my butt watching the video.
So I was backcountry camping for about, I don't know, like 5 days with a friend, and you go right interior. You don't have your car or anything. You portage everything in. Anyway, so we get back to base camp where our car is, and of course, we're just getting a little more relaxed and drunk, and just we'll do the garbage tomorrow morning. No worries, right? So. Pitch black, the fire's kind of dying out, sitting on the picnic table, and I hear this, what sounds like a horse coming through the trees. I'm like, where are the car keys? Let's go in the car. The car keys are from where the noise is coming from. So anyway, there was one point where, my buddy tried to be a hero and like took off his shirt and put it on a stick and put it in the fire to like make a torch because our flashlights died out.
Oh no.
So he lit it on, but I guess it was made of polyester and it just kind of went poof. So that didn't work. But I could I'll never forget, sort of like looking in the dark and hearing this snout sniffing us
like a big snout.
Yeah. And never been more petrified. And I totally get why in ancient cultures people worship the sun. Because it was like, for some reason, I went back to this feeling like if the sun's up, it's going to be fine. It's just getting through the night.
Yeah.
So then we basically banged pots to scare them away, and then we heard it again, and it was just a night of terror.
Long night.
And for some reason I felt safe being in the tent, which is like
Which makes no sense.
It's so weird how fear makes you, even though this thing could be just sliced open by bear claws, you do what you can. And then the next morning, the garbage was gone. The garbage bag was gone, and there were teeth marks in the toothpaste.
Oh.
So, close encounters aren't uncommon, but rest safe in the knowledge that there are, on average, fewer than 1 death per year from bear attacks.
Statistically, you're tens of times more likely to be taken out by a moose, or by slipping on the ice, or by a wayward hockey puck, or by your own clothes, by the way. More people are killed by their own clothes than bears.
Snow pants?
The real killer.
Alright, well, on that note, we'll be back with more from Raz and Adam after the break.
See you in a sec.
There's a saying that the U.S. is a melting pot, but Canada is a tossed salad. So basically it means that, you retain your culture. You're still part of something bigger, but you're still a tomato or a cucumber or a piece of lettuce. So you still, somehow it's crazy how it works that there's this separation and yet the common good, the common society.
So, now then, welcome back to this beautiful, majestic, awe-inspired, tossed salad that is Canada.
Let's get right in there with a speed round on uniquely Canadian words. Hey?
Eh?
What?
Exactly.
Eh?
A.
Hey,
That's right, eh?
Can you use it if you're angry?
I've had enough, eh? Well, actually, that doesn't sound bad. Great.
Watch where you're going, eh?
Or you're really pissing me off, eh? Yeah, I could say that.
Always at the end.
Yeah.
Always at the end.
Okay, what's a toque?
It's like a little woven hat that you wear.
Yeah, I just
It's
don't
like a
use the
beanie?
word.
Beanie, yeah.
A beanie.
Sometimes it has a pom-pom on the top, sometimes it doesn't.
Okay. How many toques do you have?
Here I have, I don't know, 2 or 3.
2 or 3 toques? You got some toque?
I just have one.
Just one toque.
Yeah,
Just
I
one.
figured I probably don't need a toque in Spain.
Singular toque. Out for a rip.
I didn't know that was a Canadian thing. I thought everybody had that.
It sounds very
Was that
Australian
for-
as well.
I think it's when you go like skiing or snowboarding or like any kind of outdoor activity where you're going fast.
I would say that, yeah. I have a friend that says, I'm going out for a rip on the ATV, eh? You can also say ripper, which is like a sort of a night out on the town where you drink too much.
One out for a
Went out
ripper,
for
eh?
a ripper, yeah.
I hope you didn't have a rip after your ripper.
Rip something.
Don't rip and riff.
Beauty. Just beauty.
That's just like cool or rad or... I don't hear people saying it much now, but I think sort of in the Bob and Doug McKenzie age, it would be like, beauty, eh? Look at that, look at that.
Giver.
I didn't know this was distinctly Canadian. Did
Yeah,
you?
I think it's like when you're like, just go, let's go, or like you. I would imagine like you're out for a rip, and you're like you're not
Exactly.
ripping enough, so you got to give her.
You gotta give her. Gotcha.
Like, give her...
This says everything that it's actually listed as a Canadian saying. Sorry.
Have you ever used it? What does it mean?
It's pronounced sorry.
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 It's a gong show.
Fiasco, mess, something ridiculous, shit show.
It's
Shit show. It's a gong show.
Did you... I think the Gong... I didn't realize maybe the Gong Show was Canadian.
Oh, is there
the
the
game
gong
show.
Yeah, yeah.
And I think if you lost, there was this big gong that he would...
Yeah. To
So
get
it
you off
became-
stage.
It's a gong show.
Wow.
A hoser?
So it's Bob and Doug McKenzie, which were like a... Rick Moranis and I can't remember the other guy's name, but they very Canadian and all the stereotypes. And they said, "You're such a hoser, eh?" Hoser meaning like fool or...
Rick
yeah.
Moranis Canadian too.
Yeah.
Oh my god.
Deadpool.
Ryan Reynolds.
He's Canadian.
Both the Ryans.
Yeah, he is.
Gosling too.
Gosling as well. That's true.
That's true.
I think one of them lives in Vancouver, actually.
Is that so?
Yeah,
What, Timberlake? Is Justin Timberlake Canadian?
Justin Timberlake.
Not sure.
Don't know.
Doesn't feel right.
Doesn't feel right.
It's too much of a hoser. Okay, Justin
Timberlake.
This is-
American. It says, looks very American. Let's see where it's
American singer-songwriter. Born in Jessica Biel. Oh no, that's sorry.
from. So it was, Tennessee.
Born in Tennessee.
Memphis, Tennessee. Look at that.
44. We're the same age.
Yeah.
I'm the same age as Justin Timberlake. God, that's horrendous. 2-4.
Is that a measurement for a board or something? I don't know.
So maybe a generational thing too. I don't know, but it meant like a 24 case of beer. So
Yeah.
go on, let's get a 2-4 and I don't know, go on a ripper.
So while we're in the flow, let's get down to Canadian cuisine.
Okay. Canadian cuisine seems to be essentially comfort food with quirks, multicultural at heart, a little syrupy, which makes sense.
Canadian cuisine. Let's get into it.
What is it? Have you tried it? Is it good?
had poutine.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. What the hell? Have you had poutine?
Yeah.
It's basically just hot French fries with cheese curds and then gravy melted over, poured over it, which melts the cheese into this gooey, wonderful post-hangover. If you, that's the best time to have it.
Is poutine? Can you get poutine anywhere, or is it just?
It's probably not as common outside of Quebec, or maybe outside of the eastern. BC is probably less common. Let's put it that way. But yeah, you can still get it. There'll be lots of restaurants that serve it.
What was your experience when you had poutine?
It's just nice. It's like, who doesn't like potatoes and melted cheese and gravy?
Yeah,
it's like,
exactly.
It's just
like the trifecta.
What could possibly go wrong with that?
It's great.
So good. But you need cheese curds.
Yeah.
Notice how I said A there?
Hey.
That's a very pointed A. Like, don't fuck that poutine up.
There's many uses of it.
Butter tarts.
Yeah, it's just a small pastry filled with sort of a caramelly. I think it's got maple syrup in it and some other stuff, and it's fantastic. Yeah.
Can't believe it took this long for maple syrup to come up.
Yeah, I know. We're getting there. In fact, number 3. Have you tried it? Is it good? Maple syrup.
Oh, it's amazing. It's amazing. I actually was in Canada and I brought some for a few of my friends, but it's maple syrup and pancakes. I can't imagine how you have pancakes any other way.
Yeah.
It's great.
It's true.
And here, maple syrup is like buying gold or diamonds or something like that.
Kind of pricey, yeah.
And I think it's going to go up because I think there's a maple syrup shortage, actually.
Is there?
They dipped into their reserves during COVID, I heard.
Wait. Slow down. There are reserves of maple syrup.
Oh, yeah. There's actually a new show on, is it Netflix, about sort of the underground maple syrup.
What, like the drug
mafia?
trade? Like the black market for maple syrup?
Pretty much, yeah. Yeah.
So are there gangs? Are there Canadian gangs?
I guess so.
Maple syrup.
The Snow Mexican Cartel.
I was gonna say.
That's right.
So wow.
Yeah, in Quebec. So
Here's a question for you. So, as a Bolivian going to the States the first time, one of the more shocking culture shock moments is going to a supermarket. Is a supermarket in Canada as intense in terms of shelves of different flavored potato chips, soda?
Basically the same as in the US, yeah.
Loblaws? Do you have Loblaws out in?
Yeah.
So it's just unbelievable, this shop. I just don't know the logistics of how you can have sort of like Thai sauce and all these really distinct products, but they're always there, you know? Plus all the, like you said, you know, aisles and aisles of every kind of potato chip and soft drink. Just remember that.
So Loblaws is massive? Am I imagining
It's
like a gigantic kind of Walmart, Carrefour?
It is, yeah. And they have their own line called President's Choice.
Can I buy snow pants at Loblaws?
You might be able
Probably
to.
could, because they're moving into retail, like they're moving into clothing and, you know, chairs and things like that.
Okay.
But that just reminds me of Arrested Development. The lawyer is called
Bob Loblaw.
Bob Blah Blah.
Blah, 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 blah.
Bob Loblaw's Loblaw?
Yeah, Bob Blah
Loblaws,
Blah.
Loblaws.
Such a
That's
great.
funny.
Sir Bob Loblaw, you, sir, are a mouthful.
Tourtière?
We make that every. So my sister lived in Quebec with her husband for many years, and a tourtière is basically a meat pie. We usually have it on Christmas Eve or something like that. But yeah, it's great, really good.
I love a meat pie.
I like that most of
Australian
the.
too.
Is it?
Yeah, I mean,
So there's a lot
meat
of
pies.
a lot of connection,
A lot.
and also a lot of the food can be used as an insult. Like you're a butter tart,
Yeah, you fucking beaver tail.
ketchup chips.
What a tourtière!
What a tortilla. Have you ever had a Caesar cocktail?
Is that a Canadian? That's not a Canadian thing.
Apparently,
Invented in Calgary.
according to this, invented in Calgary.
There's a drink called Mott. Well, the company's called Mott's, and they make Mott's Clamato. I think it's got clams, tomato, salt, pepper.
Like a michelada with
Yeah.
the beer.
Yeah, it's just got that the clam taste in there. You know, the seafoody kind of.
Is it good?
Yeah, I like it. Yeah, put a piece of celery in there.
Bloody
And sometimes
nice, though.
people put black pepper.
This is often garnished extravagantly with celery, bacon, or shrimp.
Oh, bacon or shrimp? I didn't know that.
I mean, I would actually
fact-
go for that bacon cocktail.
Every time I go take a Canadian flight, I usually ask for just the Clamato. And they always say, would you like black pepper with that? Which is so nice. It's like, I'm coming home.
Oh, this is one of my faves. Sour toe cocktail story.
Mm-hmm.
It's a bar in like the Yukon, and it's got a real human toe in it. I think it's like a bottle of tequila, I think, and it's got a human toe in it, and they'll stencil your name like on the wall if you take a swig from it, but the toe has to touch your lips.
Oof.
And it has been swallowed and replaced.
Oh,
Someone donated their toe to the Yukon bottle. Okay, that apparently has happened multiple times.
It sounds like
I always wanted to go try it.
maybe connected with frostbite, like somebody lost gangrene their toe.
Yeah, the Yukon has to be a crazy place.
Yeah.
So get a load of this. Served at the Sourdough Saloon in Dawson City, Yukon. It consists of a shot of high-proof alcohol, typically Yukon Jack whiskey, garnished with a preserved human toe.
To join the exclusive Sour Toe Cocktail Club, patrons must let the toe touch their lips while drinking. Apparently, the tradition began in 1973, when Captain Dick Stevenson discovered a pickled toe in an old cabin and introduced it as a novelty drink.
Since then, over 100,000 people have participated, and the Sour Toe cocktail has become a unique Yukon rite of passage. A unique and mildly disgusting rite of passage.
So, Canada is filled with towns with downright crazy names.
Stoner, Bacon Cove, Moose Jaw, Head Smashed in Buffalo Jump, Blow Me Down, Crotch Lake, PP Falls, Climax, and Swastika. That's in Ontario, by the way.
But a very special one caught my eye. Do you guys know Dildo?
It's in Newfoundland.
Newfies.
Or Labrador, I'm not sure.
Why?
Yeah,
Why dildo?
Why?
No idea.
They did it knowingly.
I'm from British Columbia, man.
You don't fuck with those Newfies.
Don't fuck with dildos. Yeah, despite jokes, the town proudly kept its cheeky name. It was originally called Dildo, but now it hosts dildo festivals.
So it was called dildo before knowing. Let's say it wasn't called dildo because of dildos.
I don't think so.
Okay.
Which makes
They
me...
call dildos because of the town.
There you go. It's what's the dildo and what's the egg?
Labrador. A Labradorian invention, the dildo.
Which makes me wonder how the word dildo came about for the object.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's dildo?
Maybe it's Hank Dildo invented them.
Hank Dildo Jr. Yeah, it's gotta have my name.
One theory of why dildo might be called dildo suggests that the name derives from the nautical term dildo, which refers to a phallus-shaped pin used in the edging of a rowboat to act as a pivot for the oar. Beautiful. Ladies, that one's for you.
That was a tongue twister. So, everything seems pretty utopic so far.
All right, but we gotta get to the dark side of Canada, if there is one.
We ask Raz and Adam what's wrong with their country.
It's super square. Like everything follows rules. I don't know how would you describe it?
Everything's super safe and controlled, but now compared to Spain, yeah, I feel like it's too just too restricted to everywhere. Like railings on everything, and
so it's more around the idea of like, let's be safe, let's protect, let's like that kind of thing.
There is, but for example, I was telling you how if you live in a condo, let's say in downtown Toronto, they'll put the rules under a glass case, in the elevator, and you can't no wreaths at Christmas, no boots outside your door. Someone might. It's a tripping hazard.
That level.
You
I
can
see
put
what you mean.
You can't put certain things on your balcony because they want the look
Appearance,
of the building
yeah.
to look. That's just a condo example. Yeah, some of my friends call it a nanny state sometimes. in the negative part of too much government.
I hear that a lot as well in Australia. Everything is just so overly just down the line. That's why everyone's crazy.
Yeah, so that's the thing. Usually in a society like that, you have like people cutting, or there's a way that people cut loose. Is it just letting her rip or
Going on a ripper, eh?
Going out on a
But
ripper.
I don't know. This is the part that I can't really square in my head, because if you meet Canadians from small towns, it's not like this. And yet in a big city like Vancouver and Toronto, it's like it's so suffocating. It's everywhere. It's every part of your life. It's your neighbors. It's like, that's one of the things I appreciate the most about being in Spain, is like, Spain is, to me, is just the right amount of chaos. I think if it was like the streets of Bangkok, it would be a little too much. But here in Spain, it's just the right amount.
right?
It's true, yeah. It
They
is.
say that Canada is the U.S. run by the Swiss, which kind of bugs me. But
What about so then
There's truth in it.
one thing would be drinking. What about weed?
So now it's fully legal, I think. It's now...
And are people just like, can people smoke on the street? Is it more like
Well, so there's a lot of prohibitions on smoking, of where you can smoke in general. So yeah, there has to
Not
be some
outside the red
distance.
box.
Exactly. There are red boxes. There's some minimum distance between the entrance of a building.
yeah, 20 feet or something, like at a hospital especially.
Yeah. So then there's like even in my parents' like residential building, they have it's like a complex with multiple buildings, and they have like in the open air areas, there's like a designated smoking area.
oh,
So again, like you can do it within the box, like.
So maybe the worst thing about Canada might be that they need to loosen up a bit and get that just the right amount of chaos certification.
So, as we always do, we ask Adam and Raz about the perks and downfalls of traveling the world as Canucks.
I'm never worried about it, for sure. And I think a lot of places, people light up and say, oh, Canada, either like I have a relative there, or...
what's it like having healthcare?
Yeah. Maybe they first think we're from the US or something like that. I mean, not always doing that thing. But I think there's definitely, people have respect for Canada.
Do you think people light up because it's that thing of like, first they think you're from the States, and then they realize, and like, oh, I can relax.
Yeah, it could be that, I think. Yeah, it could be that. I don't know. It's a place that isn't shoving its values down anybody's throat, and it's oftentimes forgotten. I don't know if I feel like when people talk about NATO or the G7, they talk about the EU and the US, but and maybe the UK, but Canada's often left out. So keeps us humble, I think.
That's good. And how about you, Raz? When you go back, do you go back to Iran much?
I've never been back since I left.
Wow.
That's wild.
Yeah.
That is wild.
That's insane. That's intense.
I would love to go back, but I haven't been back.
And how about here? Like, what's the reputation of Canadians?
Do you
in
introduce
Spain?
yourself as Canadian?
Yeah, it's like, depends on how much time I have.
It's same for me.
yeah.
Because I just say the last destination. I even once went on a short trip to Madrid. And when people ask me where are you from, I just said Barcelona.
The thing is, you could pull off being from quite a few places, and nobody would bat an eyelid. Yeah. Like kind of like this guy here. He's like, yeah, I'm from here.
Yeah, there's like a certain range of latitude. If you're like within that,
Yeah.
you can be from anywhere.
Do you feel Canadian? Like when you hang out with other Canadians, you feel like,
Yes and no, because I feel like what we talked about is there is some element of the culture that, because I was there when I was 12, I kind of missed out on that. So yeah, in some ways, no. But actually, like, just talking to you guys for like an hour about Canada, it's like, oh man, there's like so many things that I'm like, oh yeah, like this is Canadian. I thought this was like a universal thing, like going for a rip or whatever.
Yeah.
well, and often as we would mention things, both of you guys would like share a glance, like a very knowing glance, like, oh yeah.
That was nice.
National pride in Canada seems more of a whisper than a shout. But we gotta ask, we always do Raz and Adam ever feel like getting a flaming maple leaf tattoo on their chests? Do you ever feel like you have to represent your country when you're out in the world?
Maybe when an American's in the room. And just sort of like taking what they say and softening it. In that way, yes, I think.
Does the States feel like a family member? Like, a cousin or something where you're like, oh, they're such a mess.
Like, I hope they're doing all right. We should give them a call.
Yeah. Is it like that?
There are a lot of similarities, right?
Yeah,
I mean, cultural-wise, the type of food, there's a lot of...
It kind of hurts to even think about it, doesn't it?
It comes
you're being
back
too
to
nice.
it's so crazy. Like the cultures and the ways of life are so similar, but then there's this. It's so crazy how much Canadian culture is defined as like just being not American. As someone who wasn't always in Canada, I find this comical. For the entire time that I've paid attention to Canadian politics, gun control has always been a thing. We have no shootings in Canada. Nobody has a gun. But it doesn't matter who's in power, which party it is. Whenever there's a mass shooting in the U.S., immediately you'll get a Canadian politician talking about gun control and stuff like that.
Funny.
It's so... Like, the American presence in the Canadian mind is like they're living in our heads rent-free all the time. On the one hand, our cultures are super close. On the other hand, there's so much of like Canadian identity that is just, we're not American.
It's like they're living in your basement.
They're living in the basement, or it's like a mirror, but instead of being a mirror, it's a giant like LED screen that screams with like monster trucks going in front of it.
It's idiocracy.
I mean, I think there's some envy to sort of American entrepreneurship and all that.
Right.
I think there are a lot of entrepreneurs in Canada, but I think they're brought up with more of that sort of like I'm on the horse conquering the landscape, and we're just maybe a little more
Getting the moose out of a tree.
Yeah. And I also noticed there's sort of like this ripple effect. What happens in the US usually happens a few years later, like, for example, but in a softer way. Like the tsunamis waves are less. Like, for example, January 6th, and then we had the occupation of the Freedom Convoy in Parliament, which occupied downtown Ottawa for honking horns for 6 months, kind of thing.
Right.
But less poo.
Less
shit on the walls.
Less Viking horns.
No invading the parliament, but just populist and sort of like all the usual. It'll come to us, but softer.
Right.
Yeah.
So there we have it.
Canada, like the USA, but softer and a little bit late.
All right, that's it for this week. Huge thanks to Adam and Raz for their time on a rainy Sunday morning here in Barcelona.
We will see you next time for more MisInfoNation. Keep your prejudices in check and take care of each other out there in the world.
And remember, if you think it's a stupid question, it probably isn't.
This episode of MisInfoNation was written and produced by me, Neil Innes, and Andres Bartos. Huge thanks again to the strapping non-hockey players, Adam and Raz, for spending time with us. Check the show notes on where you can find them. Remember, the Cerca app is available at the App Store, and you can head to cercatravel.com for more information and our travel blog. A good shout if you're thinking of emigrating to Canada, or even just dreaming of visiting and trying out the Yukon Sour Toe cocktail. Our theme music for MisInfoNation is by River Deep Mountain Dew. The show is mixed and mastered by Julian Kwasniewski. Stacey Book, Dominic Ferrari, and Avi Glajanski are well-decorated, gorgeous Canadian Mounties. They also executive produce the show, which is hosted by me, Neil Innes, and a rare, grey, majestic, cross-eyed moose drunk on apples, Andres Bartos. We'll see you in the next place.
Help me get these fucking antlers out of his
Oh, Jesus Christ.